Well, customers are furious, and I can't say I blame them. Let's begin. Can you remember a little while ago when Sainsbury's thought it was a really good idea to bring out this thing where you'd have to scan your receipts as you leave the self-serve checkouts in some stores? Well, Aldi has decided to take it one step further, in my opinion, and insult every single one of its customers in the process, because presumably, of course, scanning your receipt isn't good enough for them. So what they have now taken upon themselves to do is to request that in some stores that every single shopper places their bags on the conveyor belt, so the checkout operator can have a little look in to see if you've nicked anything on the way round, and therefore of course prove that they're emptier than the library on a Friday night. Well, of course, if your bag does contain any hidden treasures or unpaid items, they'll stop your exit faster than you can say, "Oops, sorry, I forgot to scan the avocados." It's kind of like calling for an airport security, except instead of confiscating oversized liquids, they kind of want to look out for rogue chocolate bars, aren't they? Now, obviously, this approach of customer service is rather unusual, to say the least. It's as if Aldi has initiated a real-life game of show and tell. Show us your bags and we'll tell you if you continue with your shopping or not. And of course, I don't know about you, but I don't think this is exactly the right way to go on about checking if your customers are thieves or not, because let's face it, it's kind of accusing every single one of them, in my opinion. And obviously, I could be wrong, but I reckon they'll lose quite a lot of customers over this. I mean, personally, I don't actually shop at Aldi. I'm more of a Tesco's kind of guy, but if Tesco's bought over something like this, then I'd definitely change into an Asda person. Or maybe, actually another supermarket which values its customers even more. And get this, if you refuse to put your shopping bags on the conveyor belt, then they'll just refuse to serve you. I mean, what sort of place does that? It kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it, if they're planning to go out of business or maybe want a helping hand doing so. But anyway, of course, the article says that some Aldi stores in the UK are ensuring that checkout staff check shopping bags for theft as shoplifting rates increase amid the cost of living crisis. Customers apparently will now be required to put shopping bags on the checkout belt, or conveyor belt as I like to call it, along with their shopping to show that they are either empty or show staff the contents of any full shopping bags. However, if customers do not approve this, they will be refused service. It is understood that the checks at the German discounter are only carried out in a small number of stores as a short-term measure. Well, to be honest with you, if they looked in my bags and saw extra large condoms, which of course I bought from another store, then to be honest, I'd be quite embarrassed. But anyway, and it is not a national policy for Aldi, meaning that it does not state how individual stores should carry them out. An Aldi shop worker told the grocer that the policy was introduced at their store last week and the checks were separate to any carried out by security guards. And we were asking that they allow us to look in their bags to see that they are empty, the shop worker said. If a bag is not empty, we have been asking to look in their bags to make sure none of our items are in there. Aldi is one of a number of retailers to have introduced new measures in stores in recent months as shoplifting rates soar as UK families feel the squeeze on their household budgets. For example, Sainsbury's and Morrison's have introduced exit barriers at the self-serve checkouts in some of their stores recently. Co-op Food Managing Director Matt Hood this week blamed a growing sense that shoplifting is being justified on accusations of profiteering aimed at retailers by politicians. He says, "I was reading some of the comments when we've spoken about shoplifting being on the rise, and people were saying, well, they are making so much more money, so what difference does it make?" he told the Telegraph. Well, of course, I could be wrong, but it appears that the rental e-scooters have had their day in the sun. Or actually, should I say rain, because it's been pouring in complaints of accidents lately, isn't it? So in my opinion, it really is about time. I mean, these little electric speedsters have caused more trouble than, a broken condom. And apparently, there were more than 15,000 e-scooters peddling in the streets of Paris. But the people have spoken and they've voted overwhelmingly against these little zippy two-wheelers. Nearly apparently 90% of 103,000 Parisians wanted to kick these little e-scooters to the curb faster than you can say, sick with blur. Now, of course, a trio of contractors is, of course, up in arms, saying it's restrictive voted methods and it's a step back for sustainable transport. And if you think about it, it's almost as if they were saying, hey, let's not let democracy get in the way of our electric scooter empire, shall we? But let's, of course, not forget the real stars of this drama, the e-scooters themselves. They've managed to rack up quite an impressive injury and fatality record. 3 deaths and 459 injuries last year alone. So it's actually quite worrying, isn't it? I mean, maybe if anything, they're auditioning for the role of Menace on Wheels, the sequel. It just makes me wonder, though, if they'll eventually be banned over here too, because as far as I'm aware, at the minute, we're in a bit of a strange situation where if you rented a public scooter, you can actually scoot along on the roads with it. But it's apparently against the law for you to do that with your privately owned one. Either way, though, from what I've heard, they're on trial till 2024, so if they were were to be banned, that is probably the earliest it will happen. But anyway, the article says that a ban on self-service rental e-scooters has come into force in Paris after the people of the French capital city voted overwhelmingly against them. The move comes as a rise in the number of accidents and complaints from its citizens. Contractors Lime, Dot and Tia had a total fleet of 15,000 e-scooters scattered around the city between them, which are no longer permitted as of today. Private e-scooters are not affected by the ban, and apparently 90% of more than 103,000 Parisians who voted in April supported a ban on e-scooters. A trio of contractors criticised restricted voting methods in a joint statement after the results, saying it was a step back for sustainable transport ahead of the 2024 Paris Olympics. However, the vote was hailed as a victory for road safety campaigners who cited a rise of injuries and fatalities among users of e-scooters. 3 deaths and 459 injuries were attributed to e-scooters in Paris last year, compared to 1 fatality and 353 injuries in 2021. And on Wednesday, only 2 days before the ban began, apparently a 12-year-old girl was reportedly killed on an e-scooter after being hit by a car in the eastern suburbs of Paris. French newspaper Le Parisien reported that the scooters are described as an eyesore and a traffic menace by many disgruntled residents. Ulez, or as I like to call it, the unicorn-like emission zone, because let's face it, it feels like the only emissions that could possibly be acceptable to these guys is unicorn farts. But anyway, since the around 1900 cameras have been installed in the expanded area, that has had quite the interesting side effect, or shall I say actually hint to Sadiq Khan, that we don't actually want them, because as far as I've heard, around about a quarter of them have, shall we say, suddenly stopped working for, I don't know, unforeseen circumstances. Although either perhaps Sadiq Khan has been watching a live-action version of some sort of type of Blade Runner movie playing out before his very eyes, or maybe, just maybe, he's actually watching a version of the 1984 film, because if anything, it kind of seems like he's come up with quite a sneaky idea. Apparently, some drivers have spotted vans with ANPR cameras on them that presumably, driving around the expanded area, trying to catch out any drivers who dare to attempt to enter the zone with a non-compliant vehicle, if the camera in that area is, for whatever reason, being taken offline. The thing is, though, how much is this all costing us in our tax money? Especially, because in my opinion, Ulez is really pointless, because you can't exactly buy a new petrol or diesel car after 2030 or 2035 for hybrids, I keep hearing in the comments. So they're spending all this money trying to enforce something for under 10 years at the very minimum. It just kind of seems pointless, doesn't it? And it surely hits the poorest the hardest, doesn't it? Because, electric cars or a new compliant car for someone who can't afford it is going to be quite an expense, isn't it? But anyway, the article says that a fleet of Ulez camera vans appear to have been deployed following the expansion of the zone to Greater London. The controversial ultra-low emission zone this week was widened to cover all 32 boroughs in the capital on the 29th of August in a move which prompted hundreds of record attacks on cameras. A number of drivers have reported seeing vans with ANPR cameras fastened to their roofs to detect non-compliant vehicles on the roads. Transport for London confirmed that it had extensive camera network to support the scheme and that it had also deployed mobile units. A spokesperson said, "We have an extensive camera network which is sufficient, thank you very much." Well, didn't say thank you very much, but I bet they were thinking it. Which is sufficient to support the effective operation of the scheme. We have deployed some mobile units, though, as part of a mix of cameras, and anyone driving a non-compliant vehicle within the expanded zone will be detected, and we advise everyone to check whether their vehicle is compliant and to consider the various support that is available. I would also consider giving them a verbal kick in the gonads down the phone, but that's just me. And as of August, 1,900 more Ulez cameras have been installed in Greater London, bringing the total to more than 3,400 across the entire zone. Yet over the past 2 years alone, the Metropolitan Police have said that there have been 171 reports of crime relating to Ulez cameras. A total of 510 crimes were recorded between April the 1st and August the 30th, including 159 reports of cameras being stolen and 351 reports of cameras being vandalised. The number is likely to be higher as the crime can include more than just one offence on multiple cameras. And of course, the Met Police said that it treats crimes related to Ulez seriously and has deployed considerable resources to its operations. Well, let's just hope they also decide to do that for other crimes too. But anyway, 2 people have so far been arrested, with 1 charged bailed ahead of a trial and the other whose case was discontinued by the Crown Prosecution Service. TfL, or Transport for London, said that camera vandalism would not stop the enforcement of Ulez and damaged cameras would be replaced as soon as possible. While thinking about it, what also reminds me of the 1984 film is what's happening in this video, because apparently something like getting someone's pronouns wrong may get you arrested if this video is anything to go by.